Welcome back. We are here for another one of your questions about work. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Min and I are startup investors in the future of work. We've had a very busy day today. One of our companies, Doma, formerly States Title, announced to be acquired by a SPAC, which is going to be our first experience at Bloomberg Beta with the wonderful world of SPACs. But today we've got a question that is about much earlier things in the journey of building something. Min?
Congratulations, Max. We're excited for you. This one is a cover. Well, today's day 149. And so, I feel like we've gotten a version of this question before around how do you start doing things outside of your day job, right? As a way to maybe test out ideas and work on other projects. And so the question today is, how do I position my full-time job to potential clients or partners for a side gig?
Yeah, this is a tough one when this is a specific version of people managing multiple identities. And it often happens with folks who are active in, call it the creator economy, or people who just have multiple things they do. I have a friend who, if he's watching right now, I'm thinking of you, who has one life as an entrepreneur and another as a very celebrated writer. And how do you bring the two of those together? And I think my starting default is wear it on your sleeve. Hiding things or being feeling like you are in a place where you've got to navigate and manage is an enormous tax on whatever you're doing. And if you wear it on your sleeve, and we can describe what that means and how to do it and exceptions to that rule in a second, but if you wear it on your sleeve, you won't have to worry about who knows what. You might lose some potential partners or customers or something like that, but the ones you gain will be more attracted to wanting to work with you. Now, there are exceptions to that. One exception is if it's in an occupation where it's just totally expected, you wouldn't necessarily talk about it. I mean, if your full-time gig is you're a real estate broker, you don't necessarily need to disclose that to somebody who you're considering collaborating with on like making a podcast, because it just doesn't feel like the kind of thing. I mean, you could, but you just might not need to. A second is you sometimes do have occupations where there are so many judgments that the community makes that you just perceive that you have no chance of being as successful as you want to be if you're honest about it. And then the thing I would just say is concealing things has a price. You will pay that price in carving the various aspects of your identity carefully so that from each angle, and if you're prepared to pay that price, then pay the price. But now let's assume, now let's just do the how question for 1 second of like, okay, you're wearing it on your sleeve. What exactly does that mean and how do I do it? Well, you don't necessarily have to volunteer it in every conversation. You don't have to say like, oh, and by the way, I blank, blank, blank. But it's sort of, I would think to myself, from the perspective of the other party, if I were them, at what point in our process would it be reasonable for me to want to know that? And then offer it at that point, like, hey, by the way, just my schedule's a little constrained because I've got a day job, or I care a lot about what I do, here. Just so you know, like I'm doing something else to make ends meet or something like that. And, finding the right moment is about empathy for the other person and anticipating where they are and, wear it on your sleeve. If it's on your LinkedIn, it's out there in public for the world to see. You're not responsible for anticipating every objection right at the outset and addressing them all. It's a yet another timing and dosage question. So those are some of my thoughts. I don't know, Min. And I'm curious if folks, who are watching, if they want to pop comments in on Periscope or Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever you are, happy to take objections to this one, because I feel like this is one of these ones where the specific details matter so much that it's really hard to give a blanket not advice that applies to everybody. What do you think?
Some of it's expectation setting just from the get-go, right? I think, and if it is something that you're going to do part-time because you have a day job, I think being explicit about like, oh, okay, what is the level of commitment that you're willing to have? And that is like a point of negotiation that you can have with a prospective, client or partner. And then the second point I was going to make is I think depending on what industry you're in, I mean, obviously you and I work in startups and technology. And so I think the idea of like having a side hustle is more welcome and common. And so there's less like having to navigate around it as much because it's almost like expected that everyone's working on a portfolio of different activities. And so, it's also contingent on what is your industry and how relevant is the side opportunity that you're pursuing to what you do during your day job.
Yeah. And by the way, the extreme version of relevance there is if there's a conflict, if the thing you're doing on the side takes advantage of what your role is in your day job in a way that enriches you, but doesn't benefit whatever your employer might be in that role or some other conflict, that's a problem. And it's another reason to wear it on your sleeve is because sunlight is the ultimate disinfectant for conflicts of interest. And so
yeah, and we are not legal advisors, but I think some roles in some industries.
We're talking about the ethics of it.
Well, some roles and some have like literal like conflicts of interest things that you should also just double check and make sure that you are not crossing some lines that you didn't even know that you had to check off, right?
But even if your company doesn't have any policies on conflicts, it's still an ethical issue to avoid them. So probably obvious, but important to clarify. All right. This is not advice. And for those of you who are new, the reason it is not advice is because we don't know what you should do. We're not trying to give you the advice of, justifying whatever we think in your own context. We're just offering our perspectives, and then you got to decide what's right for you.
And then one last shameless plug. If any of you watching are also on, Clubhouse, I know lots of our viewers find us on Twitter. And so Roy will be on tomorrow at 3, is it? 3 Pacific?
3 Pacific, 6 Eastern, just going to show you like some of the folks we're trying to reach with Bloomberg writers debating the news. So I will probably be mostly asking them questions as they debate the news, but really excited for just having that exchange. We're calling it the B-sides. It's you read the column, but then you want to know what else? That's your chance on Clubhouse.
So come join us tomorrow and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Min.